Greetings! Welcome to the fourth, the biggest, and what we believe is the most significant and timely edition of the literary online magazine, Rethinking Children's and YA Lit. My name is Dr. Darylyn or Lynn Jones. I serve as an assistant professor here in the Department of English at Ball State University and as the Education Outreach Director for the Indiana Writers Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. For those of you who are new to the magazine, let me give you some quick context and background information on how this magazine came to fruition and how it is now free and accessible to all of you. 3 years ago, I was awarded the student-nominated University-wide Excellence in Teaching Award, and with that award came the opportunity to redesign a course and create a project-based and immersive experience for my Ball State students. As a teacher, a writer, and a social activist, it felt a natural choice to reconstruct my children's literature course, to read and study works that reflect themes of social and educational justice. Children's literature represents one of the largest publishing markets, yet children are not always hearing their stories. Children don't know or can't always access works that relate to their individual identities. Think about the spaces and places where literature lives. Bookstores, which are dwindling and becoming larger and less independent. Libraries, whose funding is being slashed all over the country. Department stores, who stock only what sells, and what sells is what is popular or classic. And classrooms, where the choices are contingent on the curriculum and the stories the individual teacher knows. And since 76% of teachers are white and from middle-class backgrounds, these stories may not be inclusive. Diversity in children's and young adult literature is critical in constructing culture and community identity. We grow up and are conditioned and ultimately wired and rewired by the stories we read, hear, and retell as children. This gatekeeping that happens at home, in schools, in communities, from publishers, often prevents new stories, different stories, rewritten stories from being consumed, read, and valued as quality literature. The course redesign was driven by my 25 years of teaching experience, activism, and research. My discovery has been that children are not hearing their stories. Stories about children like them, about families like theirs, about experiences they have, about lives they actually live. Children, young adults, teachers, parents, even librarians don't always know or can't find or have access to children's works that relate to these diverse identities. Therefore, the opportunity to construct, reconstruct, or create a new better or community is not there. Winning this award afforded me not only the opportunity, but the confidence that my students valued my ideas and content. In this redesign, what was key in driving the selection and production of materials and activities was that students in the course had to transcend the walls of our educational classroom in the Robert Bell Building. They had to transcend the institutional walls of Ball State University and be made available globally to teachers, authors, librarians, academic researchers, social scientists, and advocates. The majority of my undergraduate students, yes, are white and are female and do come from working middle-class families. Many are first-time university attendees and are from rural communities in the Midwest. My goal was to open the gate to them, to get them to rethink children's literature and then invite them to read and write for change. And they did. In the words of a student in the course, it's not about me, it's not about my personal values, but about the social values of my students who live and study in this world and the responsibility I have as a teacher to my students. The course is now offered once a year through our department as a special topics course. Each year the course and magazine focus on a different theme. Our theme this semester was Black Lives Matter. The 12 students in the course studied Black children's and young adult literature written and illustrated primarily by Black writers and artists. They immersed themselves in academic and journalism articles about the politics of publishing, the history of Black children's and young adult literature, read historical and contemporary children's and young adult books, studied authors and illustrator texts, and wrote original works of literature to add to the too small collection of Black children's and young adult literature that is currently available from publishers to readers. African American children's literature is grossly underpublished. A recent study and statistic offered by the leading research agency for children's literature, the Cooperative Children's Book Center, or CCBC, at the University of Wisconsin, notes that of the 3,200 children's books published in 2013, only 93 were about Black people, despite the fact that the Black population in this country is 14.1%. That is not okay. As a society, we have a responsibility to make sure that all children's voices are heard and equally represented, and that all children are reading about characters like them, about lives like theirs, and also about lives lived differently from theirs. Reading about characters like us and differently from us help us to not only learn about, but to understand and know the human experience of someone else. In The Apartheid of Children's Literature, writer and journalist Christopher Myers discusses this study from the CCBC and explains to his New York Times readers that while the mission statements of major publishers are littered with intentions, with their commitments to diversity, to imagination, to multiculturalism, while the editors of these companies bemoan the statistics, the fact remains that the numbers and truths are stark reassurances. The children's and young adult literature franchise, Myers points out, is growing and becoming more and more popular, yet younger people of color are harder and harder to find. Fortunately, writers like himself, his father, Walter Dean Myers, Jacqueline Woodson, Christopher Paul Curtis, and other noted Black children's and young adult writers have gone on to write in order to combat the hegemony, but institutional racism remains an issue in this country and no doubt in the current publishing climate as well. Myers' father, Walter Dean Myers, who is again a prolific writer for both children's and young adult literature, notes in his nonfiction text for youth on how to write, titled Just Write, Here's How, that when he was in school, there were no books about Harlem. There were no books about kids like him. In this edition devoted to Black Lives Matter, we open the gates to you. We invite you to engage with Black children's and young adult literature. At Rethinking, we believe that quality literary prose with well-crafted contemporary characters and storylines demand to be read and appreciated, and more importantly, published and populated on bookstore, library, and classroom bookshelves. Let's change the statistics by changing the story. Take action. Teachers and librarians, shelve and teach Black children's and young adult literature, and not just during Black History Month, but every month. Writers, write Black characters and about the Black experience. Teachers, librarians, writers, and literary agents demand that publishers print more Black children's and young adult literature. Parents, demand that your libraries, your classrooms, your bookstalls sell and teach Black literature. The more we read about Black lives, the more we will understand why the Black Lives Matter movement is a critical civil rights movement during these contemporary times. Children's and young adult literature can help us bridge the divide that is sadly growing in this country. In every edition, including this one, you can look forward to the following sections. From the editor, expert talk, where leading children's book writers, academics, activists, or librarians share their knowledge of the topic, a featured book section where you can find author information, book trailers, book reviews, and teacher tasks, a student speak section where students have recorded video logs of their personal rethinking journey, and finally a rewriting children's and YA lit section where writers have written original or rewritten classics to now include diverse topics worthy of being read, heard, and retold. As well, you will find resources and links to help you teach and discuss these books, as well as resources for how you can better understand privilege and become involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. In this final edition, 4th edition, join me in hearing from Coretta Scott King Award winner and Indiana native Michelle Wood, and learn more about her featured book, Like a Bird. View featured book trailers from a variety of authors, including Jacqueline Woodson, Sharon Flake, Nikki Giovanni, Jason Reynolds, Rita Williams Garcia, Deborah Wiles, Walter Dean Myers, and Eve Bunting. Read original children's and young adult works which allow the reader to rethink Black lives. Creative writing students in this course have composed young adult poetry, an original hip-hop song, a reader's theater, and children's picture book. Titles include Poems for the Children of Riots, I Vow to Make a Difference, You Can't Play with Us, Louise and the Brown-Faced Girl, Car, College, and a Hoodie, among many, many others. Special thanks go out to our partners, George and Frances Ball, Distinguished Professor, Dr. Jennifer Paulonis, and her amazing Emerging Media and Design Studio student team, students at the MP3 program right here at Longfellow Elementary School in Muncie, Indiana, who help write their own stories for the magazine. To my department at Ball State for their continued support. To my student editors, Erica Espinoza and Carly Scaife, and of course to my students who worked tirelessly to read, study, and produce a full edition of a professional magazine in only 15 weeks. We would love to hear your feedback and ideas. We encourage you to share this publication with others. After all, it's free. We would love for you to consider submitting your own work. We can add new works to the rewriting section of this magazine through June. So join us in reading and writing for change. Thank you.